Segment 3, Gold and Black Live. Tony Ursland and Kathy Wright-Eager, we thank them for being guests, and we're thanking Brian Neubert too, but that's part of his day job. So we're glad that, and Tom Dienhart rejoining us here for segment 3. Want to thank our sponsors also, and Tom's got to move his head now. The Hilton Garden Inn, you're right over Hilton Garden Inn. When tomorrow's a big day, stay at HDI. Tonight, Tara Mason and the good folks down there have been great to us over the year. Triple X on the hill, but on the level of Purdue tradition since 1929. And State Farm agent Trent Johnson is Trent is my agent at trentismyagent.com. And we are appreciative of all this. Our 10th year of doing this program, and I know Brian would say it just seems like 2.
Going on 100.
It does sometimes, but we actually enjoy our opportunity. Some weeks this is about the only time we're all in the same room, so that's a good thing. All right, Brian, the Boilermakers, and you'll be heading off to Columbus, and in what will be a challenge. Every game is a challenge from here on out. Ohio State is playing well. They played pretty well against Rutgers, though Rutgers did come back. But the skinny for tomorrow for Purdue is what?
Well, Purdue's got to do a better job. I don't think three-point defense is necessarily always a thing. I think it's one of those things where people either make shots against you or don't, relatively outside of a defense's control. But I think Purdue had a little bit of a hand in Penn State's video game shooting the other day. And if they're not careful, that's always a concern on the road no matter who you're playing. But I think it's especially a concern with Ohio State because they really missed DJ Carton. But Caleb Wesson's shooting 42% from three-point range as their big guy, a really good big guy.
Rutgers,
Andre Wesson is shooting 48% and doesn't need the backboard anymore to do it.
A
little nod to you Purdue fans who might still be bitter. Purdue's got to get out on shooters. Justin Ahrens coming off the bench is a low-volume guy, but he's shooting 48%. This is one of those deals where if you allow a lot of good rhythm threes, you could get buried. And Purdue, obviously, there's only so much they could do when Penn State was making tough shots the other night. But I think defensively, from a rotations perspective, from a just general effort or conscientiousness perspective, Purdue didn't do as good a job as it could of getting out on shooters.
Hey, we're getting to that home stretch here. 3 games left at home, 3 games left on the road. I'd be interested to know, Brian, again with the in near, what maybe has been the most surprising part, most surprising aspect of this Purdue team this year?
It's a good question. Big picture, I thought probably the guards would be a little bit further along than they were. Kind of looking back on it now, I mean, these guys are sophomores. They're all sophomores, and they're probably guys who might have been best suited being cast into these roles a year from now. That was not the situation Purdue's in. I think guard play held Purdue back much of the season. I think you're to the point in the year now where I think they're kind of up to speed. I think we all expected, I certainly did, that on almost every night this year, Purdue's big men would be advantages. They would be the singular advantage Purdue could kind of build around. Problem with that has been Daniel Laturo's turned into Superman. Kofi Coburn has been awesome. Miles Johnson's turned into a great player nobody talks about. Luke Garza might be the best player in the country. And everybody in the Big Ten has a good big guy. So Purdue's singular advantage, in theory, hasn't been an advantage every time out. If Purdue's just getting played to a standstill in the post, which in itself has been a chore because the guys they're going up against have been so good, your strengths really aren't your strengths. And when your strengths aren't your strengths, you have to kind of find something else to set you apart. And that's been sort of the surprise for me. Not that Travion Williams and Matt Harms haven't been good this season, but just because it's been muted somewhat by everyone in the Big Ten having a good big guy.
And it is amazing. I think it's been as balanced a league but also maybe as good a league as we've seen just in terms of Big Ten play. I think an example of a game and how crazy this league has been, Indiana, who just couldn't get out of its own way. Purdue had something to do with that this past Saturday, but goes and scores 89 points against Iowa. I didn't see a lot of that game, but again, another example of this is not a predictable, very difficult thing to predict exactly what we're going to see on a game-in, game-out basis.
Well, what you can predict is that people will get 89 against Iowa. Because for as much as they've paid lip service over the years to, hey, this is the year we take it seriously, we're going to play defense.
Yeah.
It's still every year is the same thing. Now, they have some personnel missing, some really important
Yeah.
personnel missing. That's important. But the other part of that game last night, too, was Indiana's a completely different team when Devontae Green
Is the good Devontae
the
Green.
best version of himself, as
Yeah.
opposed to the liability that shoots them out of games and makes horrible decisions more often than not. That's where Purdue, had a big advantage on Indiana, is when they don't have good Devontae Green, they really struggle to score. They really struggle to make shots, especially, and the two things go hand in hand. When Green is not giving them a backcourt scoring presence, they're not that difficult to cover
Yeah.
because their offensive skill is not what you'd expect a program like Indiana to have at all times. But yes, to your point about this league being pretty unpredictable, it has been unpredictable. This league is full of teams who are all looking eye to eye to one another. I think they're all roughly the same in terms of caliber, except for a few. And I think blowing everyone's mind, Illinois and Penn State are among the teams who are better than everyone else. But I think when everybody from like 4 to 11 are almost the same,
Yeah.
it's the home court that makes the difference. And I think that's what you saw for the better part of this season before things normalized a little bit here the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, Penn State, Illinois play this weekend, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They do.
And of course,
But if Iowa's not playing, that's going to tilt the
That's
scales
true.
for Penn State.
Yeah.
the message boards, talk radio, we're all focused now on will Purdue make the NCAA tournament? And everybody wants to hear from Brian Neubert. I know there's a lot of
I don't.
there's a lot of moving parts. Obviously, there's games to be played, outcomes that don't involve Purdue, but still, you've got an opinion.
Yeah.
People want to know, Brian, what does Purdue have to do here down the stretch? You thinking in a vacuum, just from a Purdue's perspective, to get into the big dance once again.
I think you got to win all your home games and get at least one on the road, and then probably win a game in the Big Ten tournament.
So you don't think 3-3 down the stretch, don't win one Big Ten
I
tournament?
just have a really hard time seeing 11 Big Ten teams get in the NCAA
Yeah,
tournament.
I
I
do
know
too.
everybody thinks that's the case, but what you're dealing with here is if you're taking 11, you're saying that somebody at the tail end of that is an NCAA tournament team after they've spent the whole year losing to other teams that you consider NCAA tournament teams. So what is it?
Yeah.
I mean, I think what the Big Ten has done is they've all upped their schedules.
Yeah. So you're losing more games.
They've all upped their schedules, so they all have good resumes. But then when you have a year like this, where they're all the same, and they all cannibalize one another, they all look like they're probably better than they are because they have really good net rankings. I just don't know if I look at the Big Ten and see 11 NCAA tournament teams. I think Purdue is on the bubble. I think Indiana's very much on the bubble.
Are they the last two in your mind, in the Big Ten?
I haven't looked at Minnesota's
Yeah.
credentials lately, but I think those two are right on the back end of it for sure. I think Minnesota's looking at a season where they might win like 15 games,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
I don't know what the record is
Yeah,
right
they're
now,
only 12 and 11.
but
Right,
I have a
they're
really hard time.
Well,
I mean, I probably have to get it out of my system here, thinking that 20 wins is still the benchmark. It's obviously has nothing
Yeah.
to do with it anymore. But if Purdue has 15 wins going into the Big Ten tournament, if you get one, 16. I mean, is that where the bar is
Yeah,
now?
boy.
Can
Well-
Minnesota get in with 15?
yeah, I think.
I don't think so.
I don't think they can. But, and the other thing here is Purdue, if Purdue wins it all three at home, loses all three in a row, they'll finish 17-14 overall, 9-9, or 10-10 in the league. My issue would be a 15th loss. I don't know how many teams have made it that have not been tournament
Yeah.
champions with 15 losses if you don't win the Big Ten tournament.
You're going to start seeing.
And you might be playing on Wednesday.
but
You're going
I-
to start seeing all
Yeah.
of this stuff crumble. All of those past paradigms about what gets you in the
I agree.
NCAA tournament, it's all going to go out the window. Pretty soon, somebody's going to go like 15-15 in the regular season and make the NCAA tournament. Who's with an at-large? I mean, not with a conference championship.
You may be right.
They're,
Tom.
they're gonna have a 15th loss. I guess I still seem to think if they can split their remaining 6 games, win one Big Ten tournament
Yeah,
game,
that would put them in.
and then they're gonna get the 15th loss.
It'd be 18-15.
To me, I mean,
And
maybe it's still
I
borderline.
think
but-
Brian's right. I got to get over the notion of what it is and look more at that net ranking, which still is right now still in Purdue's favor from that standpoint. But it's also interesting that you could play. You could beat. who's going to be one of those 4 teams that are going to have to play on Wednesday? We know 2 of them, Nebraska
Yeah.
and Northwestern, but you've got 2
Minnesota.
really good teams, maybe Minnesota, but you don't want to. And the tiebreaker, we're going to have to get that spreadsheet out to figure out the tiebreaker as we get closer to the Big Ten. I don't even want to deal with it now because it's too many.
Maybe
things.
maybe Purdue goes to Dayton for the playing game we were talking
Possible.
about.
That'd be fun.
You know,
That'd be
two,
fun.
two,
Brian
11,
loves to
11,
do-
11
Brian just
seed
loves
I
to
just
go
like
to
new
Ohio.
experiences. You know, here's where Purdue's margin of error exists, is what's the line in Gladiator? Our actions in this life
Yeah.
echo through eternity.
Yeah.
Well, had Purdue just held on at Marquette, had Purdue beaten Florida State, they're in.
Yeah.
Because those are elite wins right now. That would be Marquette on the road, Florida State on a neutral court, and Purdue was right there in November on
Yeah.
both of them. And if they just, that's how much it matters what you do early nowadays. It's not just about scheduling hard and getting better later, but you got to win some of those games too to get in. Last year was the exception. Purdue didn't get any of those games, but then was so good in the Big Ten that obviously it played itself in comfortably. Now, this Big Ten season's been so uneven for Purdue that some of those near misses in non-conference play really came back to haunt them.
Yeah, and it's going to be a storyline that we're going to continue to watch from that standpoint because I think this goes down to the wire for a lot of teams. It will be as I don't think in all the years of the tournament, at least since I've been around, I can remember a year where Purdue was really, really, really on the bubble, where you went into that day. Maybe there has been one where you really didn't know or were really uncertain. This is certainly one year that may be the case.
The one bubble season I remember was Robbie Hummel's second senior year, but when they won at Michigan, that was it.
Yeah.
They were in. And
Oh, yeah, I'm
that
talking
wasn't
about
like the last
selections.
game of the year
Yeah,
either.
I'm not
but
talking about
on Selection
Selection
Sunday,
Sunday,
they've been in.
Every time.
Pretty much every time, I think.
And they can still put themselves in a position to do that for the last 6 games of this regular season because, they're going to be underdogs in 3 of them. They're going to be favorites in 3 of them if you look at it from a line standpoint. And yet that variance is going to be 5 points or fewer probably in every one of those games. I mean, in terms of early line, Michigan starting to play well again. You got that game coming to West Lafayette a week from Saturday. You just can't predict it. You got Rutgers also at home, and of course Indiana on the 27th of February. All right, so when you look at Ohio State and you look at what will be the sure, is it as simple? And I'm very simplistic on these things. I just thought last week at Indiana, I understand different type of game, but it was so important that Eric Hunter hits a couple threes and gets Purdue in some rhythm. Your analysis is much deeper than they just have to make some shots in the first 7 or 8 minutes to stay in the game, but that's part of it, certainly.
Yeah, I mean, I think Purdue showed this at Indiana, but also Penn State just showed it at Purdue. It's not about making a volume of shots. It's about making the right shots, too. It's about making situational shots. Purdue, I thought, headed off every single run Indiana almost was about to make by making a 3. I thought Penn State shot Purdue's home court advantage right out the window to start the game. And every time Purdue kind of got its head up, so to speak, started ramping up to maybe make that run, it missed a 3, and then Penn State made one. And that's what's more important than shooting 50% from 3 on the road. It's if you just shoot 35%, but you make the right ones at the right times, that can go a long way. And I just think Purdue has to make that shot on the road, but also keep its opponent from making that shot as well. I know that's oversimplifying things to a certain extent. Oftentimes boiling down basketball to just shot making is oversimplification, but I think it's more about making the right shot at the right time and preventing the wrong shot at the wrong time.
All right, I'll buy that. I think nobody analyzes it better than Brian, and you can see that on goldenblack.com. He'll be having a lot to say after Purdue's game at Ohio State tomorrow, noon kick. It's not a kick, but it's a noon tip, and the Boilermakers and the Buckeyes in Value City Arena. Okay, I want to thank our sponsors, Hilton Garden Inn, and also State Farm agent Trent Johnson and Triple X. Grateful for all you do. I want to thank Wes. I'm going to start with Wes first back there, but Wes Jackson, but Gordon Jackson as well. Wes might not even be here today, I don't know, but Steve Clark, Scott Sumner, all the folks, Kurt Larman, working with, they're our landlords here at WLFI, but they've always been great to us. We've been here since 2002, I think it is. Appreciate all of them. I want to thank again our sponsors and our guests Tony Ursland's team will be competing on the Big Ten Network on Sunday at 2 o'clock Eastern Time against Illinois. And Kathy Wright-Eager also graced us with her presence today. So have a great Valentine's Day for all of you out there. It's not too late to get flowers or whatever you're supposed to do on Valentine's Day, and we'll take that as it goes, but we appreciate that. We'll be back next week, Hall of Fame weekend at Purdue. Bruce Parkinson, one of the members of that class, will be one of our guests next week. We'll look forward to that next Friday, February the 21st on Gold and Black Live. Have a great week, everybody.